morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is brush boy into my teeth so hard my gums bleed. I wash woman out of the hands I got from my father and clip her out of my fingernails. I shave woman onto my legs in the shower and rub boy into my elbows to prevent woman from cracking through my skin. I sit, all boy, at my work desk while my coworkers remind me of the woman my parents planted. I don't tell them this seed grew instead. I don't tell them the boy in me wants so desperately to be spilled from their mouths, to be running water, to be the whole goddamn ocean, to be consistent just sometimes. I don't want to be an accomplishment only when I am female. The boy in me and the girl in me are always dying and being reborn. But this world tells me I must grieve the loss of a person I am still becoming. Us queer kids, we fight wars between who everyone says we are supposed to be and who we know we are. But you see, non-binary is not a trench I hide in until I figure out which side I want to be on. I do not bite the identity bullet. I am smoking gun. I am a win-win situation. I get to claim this as my fight and not yours.
When I moved here from the Midwest, I was very much lesbian, female, and then I kind of recognized that there's a lot more to queerness than my small city in the Midwest.
I came into the queer community very rigid with my ideas of gender and of personhood, and I had an experience where I was at a party and there was a trans woman there, and she was going through transition, and I thought for some reason that because she didn't present feminine that meant I didn't have to use her pronouns, right? So I completely erased her identity and kept using he, which was so unkind. And I had the blessing because when we hurt people, it's not their job to educate us and tell them why. She could have told me to fuck off, right? And she said, "This hurt me, and you can't do this." And then that weekend, my friend said about teaching me more about queer culture.
Non-binary and trans came together for me. And it wasn't because of me not understanding that I had a different gender identity than I was assigned, but it took a long time for me to have language to be able to know what that meant.
I started telling people that I use they them pronouns right after I kind of realized that I wasn't super comfortable as identifying as female, which was probably the middle of high school is when I really came to terms with it, and I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to do.
I was feeling down one day and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put some makeup on because I've been doing guy liner for years, and I started to find that when I put on whatever clothes that I chose to show who I am, I felt like myself. There wasn't any confusion or sadness, just hoping something new.
The more that I thought about neutrality and they, them, and kind of breaking outside of that mold, the more comfortable I became. And I realized that I felt more like my true self, which I know is everyone says that, but I definitely felt a lot more comfortable and safe outside of the binary.
I am non-binary because I love the entire spectrum, and I don't have to choose from one moment to another what I'm going to wear to convince somebody that I'm non-binary.
When I came out as non-binary, I struggled a lot because I didn't think that I was trans enough to be trans. And a lot of times I still don't think I'm trans enough to be trans.
A lot of people think that if you are AMAB assigned male at birth or AFAB assigned female at birth, that you have to go to the polar opposite of everything to be considered non-binary.
Every trans person who I've ever interacted with Every trans person I've ever seen online has been, for the most part, a very binary trans person, which is fucking great, like, good for you. But I often feel like because I don't identify with that, I like love the female assigned parts of me that I don't get to claim transness.
The term trans or transgender is having a different gender or gender identity than the one assigned at birth. And since I was assigned female at birth and I identify as non-binary, those are two different things, so I consider myself part of the transgender community. It's kind of like a label that one can choose to claim for themselves. It's not a catch-all.
For the brief moments of doubt that I have, there's like 1,000 moments that I totally know that I am who I am.
I think that if people took the time to read a pamphlet or a 3-page article that can be found on Google, can open their eyes and save lives.
Through education and knowledge comes acceptance, and most people are scared of what they don't know or unfamiliar with. And as people become more educated, hopefully there will be less transphobia, which would be nice.
Coming out to friends was great. My father never understood it and will never understand it. And sometimes that's challenging because he is a wonderful person and a great dad, but he doesn't understand my identity, so he's not a person I can approach with a conversation about it. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of other people, so he kind of gets a free pass. But my brother, even being queer, still has trouble using they them pronouns, but through conversations together we've been able to kind of work through that and help, kind of reroute his brain and rewire his brain to start using that pronoun as a singular, not just a plural.
My brother called me it for a while, which wasn't super great. My parents, after a couple years, they finally got the name shift, and they're still working on the pronoun thing even 4 or 5 years later, but they're working on it, which is that's better than a lot of people can say.
Recently, very, very recently, so try not to get emotional here, I've had to walk away from my family, and my family has lots of beauty. There's lots of strong people. A lot of people that are like me get to a point where they're like, it's not I don't have the strength to, or I gave up, it's I'm tired and I don't want to fight anymore. Luckily, I have met people in Portland that tell me that my identity is real, and that I don't have to be less for other people's comfort.
A lot of my recent non-binary kind of exploration has been discovering more femininity and letting go of a lot of toxic masculine traits and behaviors and identities that I learned as a method of self-protection. Especially living in a bigger city, having a female body, we put masculinity on to keep ourselves safe, and I personally am learning a lot about what it means to wear feminine as a powerful weapon. If somebody came up to me and said they were questioning their gender, my advice would be to let it flow and not try and figure it out right now. I understand why people do feel like they need to figure it out, but the beautiful thing about gender is that it is a spectrum. It's really, really beautiful to just kind of try some things out, ask some really close friends or family to practice a couple pronouns, or maybe a different spelling of your name, or maybe a different name.
Just because you're questioning your gender, which is a cultural creation, doesn't mean that you're wrong.
I would recommend experimenting a little bit with how you're presenting yourself and see what you're most comfortable with.
Personally, a lot of my non-binary identity is questioning and being unsure, but being comfortable in that questioning stage.
It's okay to change. And at the end of your journey, if you're like, you know what, I am a cis man, I mean, I don't think I won't. I almost just vomited when I said that, but I'm not kidding. But if I were to have that statement, it would be fine. And it wouldn't take away the legitimacy of my journey or of my advocacy for others who are on that journey too. Be kind to yourself.
There isn't an end point. You're continuously like transforming. Don't see that there's going to be a point where you're magically going to be who you want to be. That's never going to happen. So be happy with the journey that you're taking.